stated openly that she wanted to receive the prize in person today. This morning, the world awoke to the news that she would not be attending the ceremony. We understand that she will arrive in Oslo later today, but her current location is unknown. In an interview with the Norwegian broadcaster NRK last week, Machado reiterated what a key role she believes US President Donald Trump is playing for the democracy movement in Venezuela. More than 80 people have been killed in attacks by the US on boats in the Caribbean in recent months. When confronted with this, she blamed the boat attacks on President Maduro, saying that he is the one who started what she called the war. Here we see the 88-year-old City Hall, undergone extensive renovation to its facade in recent years with every stone cleaned. And here we see the bronze figure of the Oslo Girl, created by the artist Josef Grimeland. The entire figure has recently been cleaned and gilded, and she really looks quite stunning. On the left-hand side of the hall, we see some of the laureate's guests waiting. We often refer the left-hand side of the hall as the international side. On the first row, we see the Venezuelan president-elect Edmundo Urrutia, who became the opposition's presidential candidate when Machado herself was banned from running for office. In the row behind, presidents from no less than 4 countries: Santiago Peña Palacios of Paraguay, Ecuador's Daniel Noboa, Argentina's Javier Milei, and José Raúl Mulino of Panama. Behind them, we see the former Nobel laureate, President of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, with her son. Behind them again, the granddaughter of Martin Luther King Jr., Yolanda King. Further back, ministers and ambassadors from several of the same countries. On the other side of the hall sit guests from the Norwegian state and authorities. On the very front row there we have the President of the Norwegian Parliament, Masud Gharahkhani. Next to him, Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre, followed by Supreme Court Justice Bergljot Webster. We also see Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Fisheries, Minister of Defence, of Labour and Social Inclusion, and finally Minister of International Cooperation. In the rows behind we have representatives from a number of political parties in Norway, but none from either the Socialist Left Party or the Red Party, several of their members having openly criticised this year's winner. Let's have a look at this year's floral decorations, which are once again by Stein Are Hansen. He's a multiple Norwegian champion and he won the World Cup in floral art in 2010. The team has turned Oslo's cold city hall into what looks like a tropical jungle, an Amazon in miniature, if you will. In previous years, cut flowers have been used for the display, but this year it's different. All the flowers are potted and they're still growing, and they all belong to one single plant family, the bromeliads. Many of these flowers are what they call epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants. the royals now arriving in the court. First the king and queen, and then the crown prince and princess with their daughter Ingrid Alexandra. They will be met by the chair of the Nobel Committee, Jørgen Vatne-Fridnes, and the director, Christian Berg-Hartvik. And the king approaches the city hall together with the mayor of Oslo, Anne Lindboe. The laureate's daughter, Anna Corina Sosa, now enters the hall, accompanied by the Norwegian Armed Forces staff band, playing a fanfare. She's joined by members of the Nobel Committee. In front, Deputy Chair Asle Toje walking with Sosa. They are followed by committee members Anne Enger and Christian Clemet. Behind them, Gry Larsen. They will take their places on the podium now and remain standing until the royal family has entered, together with the committee chair and director. The royals makes its entrance into the Great Hall. His Majesty King Harold walks first, together with the chair of the Nobel Committee, Jørgen Vatne-Fridnes, in line with tradition. Her Majesty Queen Sonja follows behind, with the director of the Nobel Institute, Christian Berg-Hartvik. Behind them, we see His Royal Highness, Crown Prince Haakon, together with Her Royal Highness, Crown Princess Mette-Marit. Behind them again, the Mayor of Oslo, Anne Lindboe, together with Her Royal Highness, Princess Ingrid Alexandra, and then His Majesty's aide-de-camp. Today's ceremony will begin with music and the artist Danny Ocean, who is from Venezuela. Ocean is 33 years old and he's lived in the US for several years now. His music first became known on the YouTube video platform, and he will perform two songs, Alma Llanera and Venezuela.
nací en esta ribera del Arauca vibrador. Soy hermano de la espuma, de la garza y de las rosas. Soy hermano de la espuma, de la garza y de las rosas y del sol. Me arrulló la viva diana de la brisa en el palmar, y por eso tengo el alma como el alma primorosa. Y por eso tengo el alma como el alma primorosa del cristal. Y amo, lloro, canto, sueño con claveles de pasión para ornar las rubias crines al potro de mi amador, para ornar las rubias crines al potro de mi amador. Y llamo, lloro, canto, sueño con claveles de pasión para ornar las rubias crines al potro de mi amador, para ornar las rubias crines al potro de mi amador. Yo nací en esta ribera del Arauca vibrador. Oh, soy hermano de la espuma, de la garza y de las rosas. Soy hermano de la espuma, de la garza y de las rosas y del sol, y del sol. Llevo tu luz y tu aroma en mi piel, y el 4 en el corazón. Llevo en mi sangre la espuma del mar y tu horizonte en mis ojos. No envidio el viento ni al nido al turbial. Soy como el viento en la mies. Siento el Caribe como a una mujer. Soy así, ¿qué voy a hacer? Soy desierto, nieve y tierra y volcán, y al andar dejo una estela del rumor del llano en una canción que me desvela. Si algún día tengo que naufragar y el tifón rompe mis velas, quiero que entierren mi cuerpo cerca del mar, en Venezuela. Thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
And now, the chair of the Nobel Committee, Jørgen Vatne Fridnes, takes the floor to give his speech to the world.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed laureate, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Samantha Sofia Hernandez, a girl of 16, was brutally abducted last month by masked members of the Maduro regime's security forces. She was taken from the home of her grandparents. Where she is now, we do not know. Probably in one of the dictatorship's detention centers. She may be with her father, who disappeared without a trace in January. What had they done wrong? Her brother was a soldier, but refused to follow the regime's order to commit brutal acts against the population. For that offense, the entire family must be punished. Juan Requesens is ordered to turn slowly towards the camera. The video showing him standing with a dazed look, as if in a fog, wearing underwear stained with excrement. He had supposedly confessed to planning a coup, but of course, there was no proof. The day before his arrest, Juan had stood before the National Assembly. He gave a speech in which he repeated one key sentence, a promise to his country and to himself: I refuse to give up. Alfredo Diaz, an opposition leader and former mayor, was pulled from a bus last November and thrown into the depths of El Coide, Latin America's largest torture center. One more political prisoner in a long line of others. This week came the news of his death. Another life gone, another victim of the regime. These stories are not unique. This is Venezuela today. It is how the Venezuelan regime treats its own people. A sister, a student, a politician. Anyone who still believes in stating the truth out loud may disappear violently into a system built specifically to eradicate this belief. Samantha, Juan, and Alfredo were not extremists. They were ordinary Venezuelans dreaming of freedom, democracy, and rights. For this, their lives were stolen from them. Under this regime, children are not spared. More than 200 children were arrested after the elections in 2024. The United Nations documented their experience as follows: plastic bags pulled tight over their heads, electric shocks to the genitals, blows to the body so brutal it hurt to breathe, sexualized violence, cells so cold as to cause intense shivering, foul drinking water teeming with insects, screams that no one came to stop. One child lay in the dark, whispering his mother's name over and over, in the hope she would not believe he was dead. A 16-year-old boy eventually came home, so ravaged by electric shocks and beatings that he could not hug his mother without pain shooting through his body.
Eventualmente llegó a su casa,
For months, he jumped at
destruido por los
every
choques
sound that
eléctricos
he
y
could not
golpizas,
hug his mother
que él no pudo
without
abrazar a su
pain
madre
shooting
sin
through his
sentir
body.
el dolor por todo su cuerpo.
He jumped at
Durante
every
meses,
sound and
Él
barely
brincaba con cualquier sonido y ruido. De noche, él se despertaba repentinamente, convencido que los soldados habían vuelto a resumir sus ataques.
As we sit here in Oslo
Nosotros,
City Hall,
al estar acá sentado
innocent people
en
are
Oslo,
locked
en
away
esta sala,
in dark
personas
cells in
inocentes
Venezuela.
son encerradas en celdas oscuras en Venezuela.
They cannot hear the speeches
Ellos no pueden
given today.
escuchar estos discursos que estamos presentando hoy día, solamente los gritos de prisioneros siendo torturados.
This is how authoritarian
Así es
powers
como los
try to
poderes
crush
autoritarios
those who stand
tratan de
up
aplastar a
for
aquellos
democracy.
que representan la
The United
democracia.
Nations has
Las
declared
Naciones
these
Unidas
acts
han declarado
crimes
estas
against
acciones
humanity.
crímenes contra la
This
humanidad.
is the regime of Nicolás
Este es el
Maduro.
régimen de Nicolás Maduro.
Venezuela has evolved
Venezuela ha desarrollado un estado brutal.
Humanitarian and economic crisis. Meanwhile, a small elite at the top, shielded by political power, weapons, and legal impunity, enriches itself. In the shadow of this crisis,
En la sombra de esta crisis,
thousands of women and
millares de
children
mujeres y
are
niños
forced into prostitution
están siendo
and
forzados
human
a la
trafficking.
prostitución y tráfico humano. hijas sencillamente desaparecen. Hijos se convierten en objetos de comercio en las manos de los criminales que ven la desesperación humana como una oportunidad comercial. Un cuarto de la población ya ha huido del país. Una de las crisis de refugiados mayores del mundo. Aquellos que permanecen allá viven bajo un régimen que sistemáticamente silencia, hostiga y ataca a la oposición. Venezuela no está sola en esta oscuridad. El mundo está equivocado. Los autoritarianos, hay más y más de ellos. Tenemos que hacer la pregunta que no conviene. ¿Por qué es tan difícil para nosotros preservar la democracia? Una forma de gobierno concebida para proteger nuestras libertades y nuestra paz. Cuando la democracia pierde, el resultado es más conflicto, más violencia, más guerra. En el 2024 hubo más elecciones que en cualquier año previo, pero hay menos libres y justos. El poder de la ley se usa indebidamente por el silencio de los medios y los críticos son encarcelados. Más y más países, incluyendo aquellos con tradiciones demócratas largas, están yendo hacia el autoritarianismo y la militarización. Estos regímenes.
When you have the perfect response in your head, but your fingers just can't keep up. We've all been there. Typing, deleting, retyping.
Regime more brutal and more robust. And yet, amid this darkness, we find Venezuelans who have refused
para hacer que los regímenes sean más brutales y más robustos. Y, sin embargo, entre esta oscuridad encontramos a los venezolanos que han rehusado rendirse, aquellos que mantienen la llama de la democracia viva, que nunca se rinden, no obstante los costos personales tan enormes. Ellos continuamente nos recuerdan de lo que está en juego. Muchos de ellos están acá con nosotros hoy día. Carlos, el poeta, Claudia, la activista, Pedro, el profesor universitario, Ana Luisa, la enfermera, Corina, la abuela, Antonio, y el político de la oposición, el presidente electo de Venezuela, Edmundo González Urrutia.
The Nobel Peace Prize laureate,
El laureado del Premio Nobel de la Paz, María Corina Machado, ha hecho todo en su poder para poder presentarse a la ceremonia que hoy día, un viaje en una situación de extremo peligro. A pesar de que quizás ella no pueda llegar a esta ceremonia, los eventos de hoy día, sí, estamos profundamente felices confirmar que ella se encuentra segura y que ella sí estará con nosotros en Oslo.
At the heart of the battle for democracy,
parte de la batalla a favor de la democracia deslumbra la verdad sencilla. La democracia es más que una forma de gobierno, también es la base para la paz que perdure. Millones de venezolanos, año tras año, estudiantes, sindicatos laborales, periodistas, grupos comerciales y ciudadanos comunes y corrientes se han movilizado en olas de resistencia. Han repletado las calles protestando. Cuando le quitaron sus votos, Ellos golpeaban cazuelas. Cuando es inescapable el ser observado por el gobierno, ellos susurran. Las personas por todo el espectro político, de comunistas a conservadores, han hecho presente para enfrentarse al régimen. La oposición ha tratado una estrategia tras otra. A través de todo esto han dicho ellos: nosotros no queremos venganza, pero queremos justicia. Luchamos a favor de la santidad de las urnas, a favor de la democracia y la paz. Pero se le dice en respuesta que estas cosas son imposibles de lograr, que van a fracasar. Y cuando los venezolanos le piden al mundo que presten atención, nosotros le dimos la espalda. Al perder ellos sus derechos, sus alimentos, su salud y seguridad, y eventualmente sus propios futuros, gran parte del mundo contaba con los narrativos de antaño. Algunos insisten que Venezuela era una sociedad egalitaria, idónea. Otros querían solamente ver una lucha contra el imperialismo. Aún otros eligieron interpretar la realidad venezolana como poco más que un concurso entre superpoderes, pasando por alto la valentía de aquellos que buscan la libertad en sus propios países. Lo que tienen en común todos los observadores es esto: la traición moral de aquellos que en sí viven bajo este régimen brutal. Si solamente ustedes respaldan a las personas que comparten sus opiniones políticas, usted no ha entendido ni la libertad ni la democracia. Sin embargo, muchos críticos se detienen ahí. Ven las fuerzas demócratas locales cooperando por necesidad con actores que no le caen bien y utilizan esto para justificar el retirar el apoyo. Esta convicción ideológica de solidaridad humana. ¿Y cómo podemos nosotros observar a aquellos que usan toda su energía encontrando culpa con las elecciones difíciles que han tenido que tomar a aquellos que defienden la democracia en vez de reconocer su valor y sus sacrificios? Le preguntamos cómo nosotros podemos también luchar contra la dictadura. Es fácil decirle: mantengo firme con mis principios cuando está en juego la libertad de terceros, pero ningún movimiento democrático opera en circunstancias idóneas. Los líderes activistas tienen que confrontar y resolver dilemas que nosotros, lo que miramos como terceros, podemos libremente ignorar. Aquellas personas que viven bajo la dictadura tienen que elegir entre la dificultad y lo imposible. Sin embargo, muchos de nosotros, desde una distancia segura, esperamos que los líderes democráticos de Venezuela consigan sus objetivos con la pureza moral que sus contrincantes nunca demuestran. Esto es irrealista, esto es injusto y demuestra ignorancia de la historia. Muchos que han estado ante este podio para recibir el Premio Nobel por la Paz, incluyendo Lech Walesa y Nelson Mandela, sabían a fondo los dilemas del diálogo. En sistemas autoritarismo, el diálogo puede llevar a mejoras, pero también puede ser una trampa. El diálogo a menudo se utiliza para comprar tiempo, crear división y controlar la agenda. María Corina Machado ha participado en procesos de diálogos durante años. Ella nunca ha rechazado el principio de hablar con la contraparte, pero ella ha desechado estos procesos. La paz sin la justicia no es paz. El diálogo sin la verdad no es una reconciliación. El futuro de Venezuela puede tomar muchas diferentes formas, pero el presente es solamente algo, es horrible. Por eso, la oposición demócrata en Venezuela tiene que tener nuestro apoyo, no nuestra indiferencia, o peor, nuestra condena. Todos los días, sus líderes tienen que elegir un camino que de hecho está abierto para ellos, no el camino de pensar con deseos El apoyo para un desarrollo democrático es apoyar la paz. Pero desde el anuncio del Premio Nobel de la Paz de este año, se ha hecho la siguiente pregunta. ¿De veras la democracia nos lleva a la paz? Y lo que hemos encontrado en nuestras investigaciones es algo muy claro, y la respuesta es sí. No porque la democracia es perfecta, pero debido a que el mecanismo de la democracia hace que la guerra sea menos probable. Las democracias están equipadas con válvulas de seguridad, medios libres, estructuras que comparten el poder, tribunales independientes, organizaciones de sociedad civil y elecciones que hacen que sea posible cambiar el liderazgo sin violencia alguna. En este entorno político hay las diferentes opciones no son una amenaza para descartar, pero son una ventaja. En una democracia, el líder que ignora los hechos puede ser reemplazado en la próxima elección. En un régimen con autoritarismo, el líder permanece en poder y reemplaza todas las verdades. La lealtad toma lugar de la realidad y decisiones peligrosas son tomadas en la oscuridad. La guerra siempre es costosa, pero en estos regímenes con autoritarismo no son los líderes que pagan el precio más caro. Por eso la democracia casi nunca va a guerra uno contra la otra, como hacen los gobiernos con autoritarismo. Nicolás Maduro fue el líder de Venezuela y nos demuestra por qué. Los conflictos se resuelven con fuerza bruta y no con negociaciones. El resultado es una sociedad donde millones son forzados a estar callados, con consecuencias que no se detienen en la frontera. La instabilidad, la violencia y la destrucción sistemática de las instituciones del país han impactado a toda la región. Y los países vecinos han sido amenazados con invasiones militares. Venezuela demuestra con claridad dolorosa que la regla del autoritarismo destruye a una sociedad dentro de sí misma y riega la instabilidad fuera de sus fronteras. La democracia obviamente no garantiza la paz, pero es el sistema más eficaz que tenemos para evitar la violencia y el conflicto. Esta línea de raciocismo a veces nos hace pensar en un contraargumento que la democracia en sí causa.
Estamos a esta hora escuchando en vivo las palabras de Jorgen Batna Frudnes, quien es el presidente del Premio Nobel de la Paz.
And propaganda, two of their essential weapons. Ladies and gentlemen, as citizens of a democracy, we have a duty to be critical of information sources. Alarm bells,
Is it Maria Corina?
Yeah.
are identical to those disseminated by one of the world's most manipulative disinformation systems. For in that case, we are not just spreading information, we are spreading the strategic propaganda of a dictator. What are we all to think when we read that is the Venezuelan opposition that is threatening the country with war, that the democratic movement desire an invasion, when the narrative is turned upside down and when the victims are branded as aggressors? This is a version of reality that the Maduro regime tells the world, that it is the guarantor of peace. But peace based on fear, silence, and torture is no peace. It is submission depicted as stability. No, the source of the violence is not the democracy activists. It is those at the top who refuse to cede power. It was not Nelson Mandela who made South Africa violent, but the apartheid regime's crackdown on demands for equality. Opposition groups did not start the imprisonments in Belarus, the executions in Iran, or the persecution in Venezuela. The violence comes from authoritarian regimes as they lash out against popular calls for change. Peace and democracy cannot be separated without draining both of meaning. Lasting peace depends on the rule of law, political participation, and respect for human dignity. Before we can discuss political disagreements, we must establish some form of democracy. Without it, there is no meaningful distinction between right and left, no way to legitimately disagree, no genuine politics. Democracy is not an expendable luxury. It is not an ornament to be put on a shelf. Democracy is hard work. It is action and negotiation. It is a living obligation. The instruments of democracy are the instruments of peace. We gather here today, therefore, to defend something far more important than either side of a political or ideological divide. We gather to defend democracy itself, the very foundation on which lasting peace rests. When people refuse to surrender democracy, they refuse to surrender peace. One who understands this is Maria Corina Machado. As a founder of Sumate, an organization devoted to building democracy, Ms. Machado stepped forward to advocate free and fair elections more than 2 decades ago. As she herself put it, it was a choice of ballots over bullets.
La señora Machado dijo presente para buscar elecciones libres y justas desde hace más de 2 décadas. Como ella misma lo dijo, había que elegir votos o balas. En su cargo político y en su servicio a organizaciones, la señora Machado ha hablado a favor de la independencia judicial, derechos humanos y representación popular, pasando años trabajando a favor de la libertad del pueblo venezolano. Las elecciones presidenciales de 2024 fue un factor clave en la selección del Premio Nobel de la Paz de este año. La señora Machado fue la candidata presidencial de la oposición y la voz unificante de esperanzas del país. Cuando el régimen bloqueó su candidatura, el movimiento puede haber colapsado, pero a través de su apoyo con Edmundo González Urrutia y la oposición, permanecieron unidos. La oposición encontró terreno común, exigiendo elecciones libres y gobierno representativo. Esta es la base de la democracia, nuestra disponibilidad compartida de defender los principios de la regla popular, aunque estemos en desacuerdo con la política. En el momento que la democracia está bajo amenaza en todo el mundo, es más importante que nunca antes defender este terreno común. Centenares de millares de voluntarios movilizados por divisiones políticas, fueron capacitados como observadores de elecciones y utilizaron tecnología de nuevas maneras para documentar cada paso de la elección. Hasta 1 millón de personas estuvieron observando estaciones de urnas en todo el país, donde fotografiaron los récords, los votos y obtuvieron copias antes de que el régimen pudiera destruirla. Defendieron esta documentación con sus vidas, cerciorándose que el mundo supo los resultados de la elección. Esto era movilización básica del pueblo, a diferencia de cualquier otra que Venezuela y probablemente el mundo jamás habría visto. Ciudadanos comunes y corrientes de todas partes del pueblo, llevando a cabo trabajo documentario a alta tecnología en una atmósfera de amenazas, observaciones y violencia. El esfuerzo de este movimiento democrático, ambos antes y después de la elección, eran valientes, pacíficos y democráticos. La oposición recibió apoyo internacional cuando sus líderes publicaron el conteo de votos recopilados de los distritos electorales del país, demostrando que la oposición había ganado por un margen claro. Pero el régimen lo negó todo, falsificó los resultados de la elección y se aferró al poder violentamente. Durante el último año, la señorita Machado ha tenido que vivir escondida. No obstante amenazas serias, ella ha permanecido en el país, una inspiración a millones. Ella está recibiendo el Premio Nobel por la Paz del 2025 por su trabajo incansable promoviendo derechos democráticos del pueblo de Venezuela y por la lucha para lograr una transición pacífica y justa de una dictadura a una democracia. Durante mucho tiempo, la oposición en Venezuela ha dependido en las herramientas de la democracia para llevar a cabo su campaña pacífica civil. Durante los años, la señorita Machado y sus aliados han tenido que adaptar y cambiar tácticas. Han aplicado casi todas las herramientas democráticas disponibles, desde boicots a las elecciones cuando el sistema estaba demasiado podrido, a la participación cuando pequeñas aberturas en el proceso hacían esto posible. Trataron el diálogo, organización, movilización y elecciones, documentación extensa de elecciones. La señora Machado ha pedido atención internacional, apoyo y presión, no por una invasión a Venezuela. Ella le ha instado al pueblo que digan, yo quiero mis derechos, usando maneras pacíficas democráticas para lograrlo. Las investigaciones sobre la paz demuestran esto claramente. Movilización no violenta, general, es el método más eficaz de lograr cambios políticos en una dictadura. Cuando una población se moviliza y la comunidad internacional pone presión fuerte y las fuerzas de seguridad no utilizan violencia contra su población, punto pivotal puede surgir. Como líder del movimiento demócrata en Venezuela, María Corina Machado es una de los ejemplos más extraordinarios de valor civil en la historia reciente latinoamericana. El Premio Nobel de la Paz de este año cumple con todos los 3 criterios en todos los premios Nobel. En primer lugar, la oposición venezolana ha unido movimientos políticos, organizaciones civiles y ciudadanos comunes y corrientes para lograr un objetivo: la restauración de la democracia, uniendo grupos diversos que previamente se oponían uno al otro. Es el equivalente de lo que Alpha Nobel llamaba mantener la paz y su progreso. En segundo lugar, el movimiento democrático de Venezuela se ha opuesto a la militarización de la sociedad por parte del régimen. El régimen ha armado a millares de grupos, ha autorizado pandillas paramilitares que cometan abusos, ha invitado fuerzas extranjeras militares al país, acelerando la militarización. Al documentar abusos y exigiendo responsabilidad, la oposición desea fortalecer la autoridad democrática civil y eliminar la influencia de armas. Esto no le permite las armas a las milicias malévolas y satisface los criterios nobles de buscar la paz a través del desarmamento. En tercer lugar, fraternidad verídica, hermandad, el tipo que Alfred Nobel deseaba, exige que la democracia, solamente cuando las personas pueden elegir a sus líderes.
Bueno, y mientras continúa este discurso del presidente del Comité Nobel, Jorge Batne Fridnes, vamos a enlazarnos.
Therefore, here today, in this hall, with all the gravity that attends the Nobel Peace Prize and this annual ceremony, we will say what authoritarian's leader fear most. Your power is not permanent. Your violence will not prevail over people who rise and resist. Mr. Maduro, accept the election result and step down. Lay the foundation lay the foundation for a peaceful transition to democracy, because that is the will of the Venezuelan people. Maria Corina Machado and the Venezuelan opposition have lit a flame that no torture, no lie, and no fear can extinguish. When the history of our time is written, it won't be the names of the authoritarian rulers that stand out, but the names of those who dared resist, those who stood tall in the face of danger, those who kept going when others gave up. Karl von Ossietzky, Andrei Sakharov, Nelson Mandela. In its long history, the Norwegian Nobel Committee has honored brave women and men who have stood up against repression, who have carried the hope of freedom in prison cells, in the streets, and in public squares, and shown by these actions that resistance can change the world. Today, we honor Maria Corina Machado. We pay tribute as well to all who wait in the dark, all who have been arrested and tortured or disappeared, all who continue to hope, all those in Caracas and other cities of Venezuela who are forced to whisper the language of freedom. May they hear us now. May they realize that the world is not turning away, that freedom is drawing closer, and that Venezuela will become peaceful and democratic. Let the new age dawn. Thank you.
And after warm applause, the chair of the Nobel Committee, Jürgen Wachtmeister, will call forward Anna Corina Sosa to receive the Nobel diploma and medal on behalf of her mother, Maria Corina Machado, whose chair on the podium remains empty today.
I now call upon Ms. Ana Corina Sosa Machado, the daughter of the Nobel Peace Prize laureate for 2025, to step forward to receive the diploma and the gold medal on behalf of her mother, Ms. Maria Corina Machado.
And she steps forward to receive the award on behalf of her mother, who's unable to be with us in Oslo today. In recognition of the democratic movement in Venezuela, as photographers capture the moment, these pictures from this year's Peace Prize will be shared around the world. Before the Nobel lecture, we'll have some more music. Standing on the podium now is Vera Sonn, singer and songwriter from Oslo, Norway. We'll hear two compositions, Solbønn, or Sun Prayer, written by Julie Kvernberg, and then the traditional Nu rinder solen opp av Østerlidet, now the sun rises from the eastern slopes. With her is Martin Steinum Brun. And now it's time for the Nobel lecture. which was written by laureate Maria Corina Machado.
I now call upon Ms. Ana Corina Sosa Machado, the daughter of the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Ms. Maria Corina Machado, to deliver the Nobel Peace Prize lecture for 2025. Ms. Sosa, will you please take the floor?
She takes the floor on behalf of her mother to read the words her mother wrote for the occasion today.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished members of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, citizens of the world, my dear Venezuelans. First, I want to express our infinite gratitude from my family, from an entire country, to the Norwegian Nobel Committee. Thanks to you, the struggle of an entire people for truth, for freedom, for democracy and peace is today recognized around the world. I am here on behalf of my mother, Maria Corina Machado, who has united millions of Venezuelans in an extraordinary effort that you, our hosts, have honored with the Nobel Peace Prize. But although she has not been able to be here and take part in this ceremony, I must say that my mother never breaks a promise. And that is why, with all the joy in my heart, I can tell you that in just a few hours, we will be able to embrace her here in Oslo after 16 months living in heaven. And as I await that moment to hug her, to kiss her, to embrace her after 2 years, I think of the other daughters and sons who do not get to see their mothers today. This is what drives her, what drives all of us. She wants to live in a free Venezuela, and she will never give up on that purpose. That is why we all know, and I know, that she will be back in Venezuela very soon. In the meantime, at this moment, I face the difficult task of giving voice to her words. The speech she prepared for this occasion, this is her speech. I have come here to tell you a story. The story of a people and their long march toward freedom. This march brings me here today as one voice amongst millions of Venezuelans who rose once again to reclaim the destiny that was always theirs. Venezuela was born of audacity, shaped by peoples and cultures intertwined. From Spain, we inherited a language, a culture, and a faith that merged with ancestral indigenous and African roots. In 1811, we wrote the first constitution in the Spanish-speaking world, one of the earliest republican constitutions on earth, affirming the radical idea that every human being carries a sovereign dignity. This constitution enshrined citizenship, individual rights, religious liberty, and separation of powers. Our ancestors carried liberty on their backs. They crossed an entire continent from the banks of the Orinoco to the heights of the Potosí to help give rise to societies of free and equal citizens, out of the conviction that freedom is never whole unless it is shared. From the beginning, we believed something simple and immense, that all human beings are born to be free. That conviction became our national soul. In the 20th century, the earth opened. In 1922, the Reventón in La Rosa erupted for 9 days, a fountain of oil and possibility. In peace, we turned that sudden wealth into an engine for knowledge and imagination. Through the ingenuity of our scientists, we eradicated disease. We built universities of global prestige, museums and concert halls, sent thousands of Venezuelans abroad through scholarships, trusting that free minds would return as transformation. Our cities glowed with the kinetic art of Cruz Diez and Soto. We forged steel, aluminum, and hydropower, proof that Venezuela could build anything it dared to envision. But Venezuela also became a refuge. We opened our arms to migrants and exiles from every corner of the world. Spaniards fleeing civil war, Italians and Portuguese escaping poverty and dictatorship, Jews after the Holocaust, Chileans, Argentinians, and Uruguayans escaping military regimes, Cubans escaping communism, and families from Colombia, Lebanon, and Syria seeking peace. We gave them homes, schools, and safety, and they became Venezuelans. This is Venezuela. We built a democracy that became the most stable in Latin America, and freedom unfolded as a creative force. But even the strongest democracy weakens when its citizens forget that freedom is not something we wait for, but something we become. It is a deliberate personal choice, and the sum of those choices forms the civic ethos that must be renewed every day. The concentration of oil revenues in the state created perverse incentives. It gave the government immense power over society, which turned into privilege and corruption. My generation was born in a vibrant democracy, and we took it for granted. We assumed freedom was as permanent as the air we breathed. We cherished our rights, but we forgot our duties. I was raised by a father whose life's work, building, creating, serving, taught me that loving a country meant assuming responsibility for its future. By the time we recognized how fragile our institutions had become, a man who had once led a military coup to overthrow democracy was elected president. Many thought charisma could substitute the rule of law. From 1991 onward, the regime dismantled our democracy, violating the Constitution, falsifying our history, corrupting the military, purging independent judges, censoring the press, manipulating elections, persecuting dissent, and ravaging our extraordinary biodiversity. Oil wealth was not used to uplift, but to bind. Washing machines and refrigerators were handed out on national television to families living on dirt floors, not as progress, but as spectacle. Apartments meant for social housing were handed to a select few with a condition for unquestionable obedience. And then came the ruin, obscene corruption, historic looting. During the regime's rule, Venezuela received more oil revenue than in the previous century combined, and it was all stolen. Oil money became a tool to purchase loyalty abroad, while at home, criminal and international terrorist groups fused themselves to the state. The economy collapsed by more than 80%. Poverty surpassed 86%. Today, 9 million Venezuelans have been forced to flee. These are not statistics, they're open wounds. Meanwhile, something deeper and more corrosive took place. It was a deliberate method to divide society by ideology, by race, by origin, by ways of life, pushing Venezuelans to distrust one another, to silence one another, to see enemies in one another. They smothered us, They took us prisoners, they killed us, and they forced us into exile. It had been almost 3 decades of fighting against a brutal dictatorship, and we had tried everything. Dialogues betrayed, protests of millions crushed, elections perverted. Hope collapsed entirely, and belief in any kind of future became impossible. The idea of change seemed either naive or crazy. It seemed impossible. Yet from the very depths of that despair, a step that seemed modest, almost procedural, changed the course of our history. We decided against all odds to run a primary election. And unlike any act of rebellion, we chose to trust people, to rediscover one another. We traveled by road and by dirt path in a country with gasoline shortages, daily blackouts, and collapsing communications. Forbidding from advertising, without money or media willing to speak our names, we crossed it only with our conviction. Word of mouth was our network of hope. And it spread faster than any campaign, because our desire for freedom was very much alive within us, and it had never died. The forced migration that was meant to fracture us instead united us around one sacred purpose: to reunite our families in our land. Grandparents confided in me their greatest fear: dying before meeting their grandchildren abroad. Little girls with voices too small for such sorrow begged me to bring back their mothers and siblings scattered across the continent. Our pain fused into one heartbeat: bring our children home now. In May 2023, during a rally in the town of Nirgua, a teacher named Carmen came up to me. She told me she had just run into her jefa de calle. A jefa de calle is a regime agent assigned to Carmen's block who decides, house by house, who receives a monthly food bag and who is punished with hunger. Shocked to see this woman there in that rally, Carmen asked her, "Why are you here?" And the jefa de calle replied, "My only son, who fled to Peru, asked me to be here today. He told me that if Maria Corina wins, he will return home. Tell me what I have to do. I'll do anything." That day, love defeated fear. 2 weeks later, we reached Delicias, a tiny village swallowed by Colombian guerrillas and drug traffickers, where not even a chicken can be sold without their permission. No candidate had gone there since 1978. And as the team climbed the mountain, I saw Venezuelan flags waving from every humble home. I naively asked, as if it was a national holiday that merited all the flags, and someone whispered, "No, here the flags are hidden. Bringing it out is dangerous." Today, people raise them to thank you for daring to come. You will leave, but we will remain identified. That day, entire families stood up to the armed groups that ruled their lives. And when we sang the national anthem together, sovereignty returned in a single fragile, defiant chorus. That day, courage defeated oppression. Our gatherings became intimate encounters of thousands. We embraced, we cried, we prayed. We understood our struggle was much more than electoral. It was an ethical struggle for truth, an existential struggle for life, and a spiritual struggle for good. With less than a year before the presidential election, we had to unite every democratic force and restore trust in the votes. The primaries became that moment, a self-organized civic effort that built a nationwide citizen network unlike anything Venezuela had ever seen. And on October 22nd of 2023, against all odds, Venezuela awoke. The diaspora, which was a third of our nation, reclaimed its right to vote. The son who had left cast his ballot alongside the mother who stayed. Lines stretched for blocks. Turnout was so overwhelming that ballots actually ran out. We trusted the people, and they trusted us back. What began as a mechanism to legitimize leadership became the rebirth of a nation's confidence in itself. That day, I received a mandate, a responsibility that transcended any individual ambition. I felt humbled and profoundly aware the weight with which I had been entrusted. Threatened by that truth, though, the regime prohibited me from running for president. It was a harsh blow, but mandates belong to the people. We set out to find another candidate who could take my place. Edmundo González Urrutia stepped forward, a calm, brave former diplomat. The regime believed he posed no threat, but they underestimated the resolve of millions of citizens, a plural, vibrant society that in all its diversity found unity in a common purpose. Communities, political parties, unions, students, and civil society stood together and worked as one so that the voice of a nation could be heard. We were 3 months from election day, and almost no one knew his name. But votes were not enough. We had to defend them. For over a year, we had been building the infrastructure to do so. 600,000 volunteers across 30,000 polling stations, apps to scan QR codes, digital platforms, diaspora call centers. We deployed scanners, Starlink antennas, and laptops hidden inside fruit trucks to the furthest corners of Venezuela. Technology became a tool for freedom. Secret training sessions were held at dawn in church back rooms, kitchens, and basements, using printed materials that were moved across Venezuela like contraband. Finally, election day arrived on July 28th, 2024. Before dawn, lines wrapped around blocks. A quiet, trembling hope filled the air. Our live tracking showed turnout rising across every state and town. And then the electoral tally sheets, the famous actas. The sacred proof of the people's will began to appear. First by phone, then WhatsApp, then photographs, then scanned, and finally carried by hand, by mule, by canoe. They arrived from everywhere across Venezuela, an eruption of truth, because thousands of citizens risked their freedom to protect them. Confronted with our overwhelming victory, the regime issued a desperate order. Soldiers were to expel our volunteers from voting centers and block them from receiving the original tally sheets they were legally entitled to. But the soldiers disobeyed. Edmundo González Urrutia won with 67% of the vote in every state, city, and village. In every state, city, and village, every single tally sheet told the same story. Within hours, they were digitized and published on a website for the world to see. But the dictatorship responded with terror. 2,500 people kidnapped, disappeared, tortured, homes marked, entire families taken as hostages, priests, teachers, nurses, students, anyone who dared share a tally sheet was hunted down. These are crimes against humanity, documented by the United Nations. State terrorism deployed to bury the will of the people. Some of the more than 220 children detained after the elections were electrocuted, beaten, and suffocated until they repeated the lie the regime needed, falsely incriminating themselves of being paid by me to protest. Women and girls in prison are right now being forced into sexual slavery, made to endure abuse in exchange for a family visit, a meal, or the chance to take a bath. And yet, the Venezuelan people did not surrender. During the past 16 months in clandestinity, we have built new networks of civic pressure and disciplined disobedience, preparing for Venezuela's orderly transition to democracy. That is how we reach this day, a day carrying the echo of millions who stand at the threshold of freedom. This prize carries profound meaning. It reminds the world that democracy is essential to peace. And more than anything, what we Venezuelans can offer the world is the lesson forged through this long and difficult journey, that to have democracy, we must be willing to fight for freedom. And freedom is a choice that must be renewed every day, measured by our willingness and our courage to defend it. For this reason, the cause of Venezuela transcends our borders. A people who choose freedom to contribute not only to themselves, but to humanity. We attain freedom only when we refuse to turn our backs on ourselves, when we confront the truth directly, no matter how painful, when love for what truly matters in life gives us the strength to persevere and to prevail. Only through that inner alignment, that vital integrity, do we rise to meet our destiny. Only then do we become who we truly are, able to live a life worthy of being lived. Along this march to freedom, we gain profound certainties of the soul, truths that have given our lives a deeper meaning and prepared us to build a great future in peace. Therefore, peace is ultimately an act of love. This love has already set our future in motion. Venezuela will breathe again. We will open prison doors and watch thousands who were unjustly detained step into the warm sun, embraced at last by those who never stopped fighting for them. We will see grandmothers settle children on their laps to tell them stories not of distant forefathers, but of their own parents' courage. We will see our students debate ideas passionately and without fear, their voices rising freely at last. We will hug again, fall in love again, hear our streets fill with laughter and music again, and all the simple joys in the world that we have taken for granted will be ours. My dear Venezuelans, the world has marveled at what we have achieved, and soon it will witness one of the most moving sights of our time, our loved ones coming home. And I will stand again on the Simón Bolívar Bridge where I once cried the thousands who were leaving and welcome them back into the luminous life that awaits us. Because in the end, our journey towards freedom has always lived inside us. We are returning to ourselves. We are returning home. Allow me to honor the heroes of this journey. Our political prisoners, the persecuted, their families, and all who defend human rights. Those who sheltered us, fed us, and risked everything to protect us. The journalists who refused silence, the artists who carried our voice, my exceptional team, my mentors, my fellow political and social activists, the leaders around the world who joined us and defended our cause. My 3 children, my adored father, my mother, my 3 sisters, my brave and loving husband, who've all supported me throughout my life. And above all, the millions of anonymous Venezuelans who risked their homes, their families, and their lives out of love. To them belongs this honor. To them belongs this day. To them belongs the future. Gracias.
A standing ovation and thunderous applause from the assembled guests here in Oslo City Hall. After today's Nobel lecture delivered by Ana Paulina Sosa on behalf of her mother, Maria Corina Machado. She's represented her mother on several occasions. This must be quite the highlight. And the applause continues. And now we approach the third and final musical interlude by an artist from the laureate's home country of Venezuela. The pianist Gabriela Montero, said to have been introduced to the piano when she was only 7 months old. Educated in Venezuela and in London, she will now perform Mi Querencia, written by another Venezuelan artist, Simón Díaz. to their heart. And standing, listening to the song of the Venezuelan homeland, we approach the end of the ceremony. The Norwegian royal family will now congratulate Anna Corina Sosa on behalf of her mother, recipient of this year's Nobel Peace Prize. Shaking hands with King Harold. Who then goes on to greet members of the Nobel Committee. Her Majesty Queen Sonja following close behind. And then the Crown Prince, the Crown Princess, and Princess Ingrid Alexandra, who is here for the first time, will now step forward, greeting Anna Corina Sosa and then members of the Nobel Committee. The procession will begin once more to the tune of the Royal Norwegian Navy Band playing the parade march. First to leave Oslo City Hall this afternoon, the King and Queen, together with committee chair Jørgen Vatne Fridnes and the director of the Nobel Institute, Christian Berg Harpviken. Behind them, the Crown Prince and Princess, the Mayor of Oslo, together with Princess Ingrid Alexandra, followed by the King's aide-de-camp. And above us all now, we hear the famous City Hall bells begin to chime. And Anna Corina Sosa will now leave the hall together with the Nobel Committee. She'll be escorted out by the committee's deputy chair and the rest of the committee, and then the other honoured guests will follow. That's it from this year's Nobel Peace Prize.